when people look at me based on my skin color and they judge me. They make a judgment of me. And I used to get upset as a kid. Now I'm just like, oh, that's ignorance. But I realized that I was in some way doing that to certain groups of people. Like when you see a bunch of bikers all tatted up and you're like, whoa, these guys must be bad news. And then you sit down and you talk to them and you're like, holy crap. They're like some of the nicest people I've met. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Ultimate Ambitions. Today, I have my dear friend that I've known for I don't even know how many years now, and literally one of the most interesting men on the planet. He's lived like 19 different lives, and he's done so much, and I'm so excited to get his insights out to you about how you could reach your goals and ultimate ambitions. Bruce Cardenas, welcome, Bruce. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. All I need is that first clip from my intro. I could use that everywhere now. You're so great, so gracious with the introduction. But yeah, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
And I'm glad we ran into each other the other day, and this just happened serendipitously.
So, I mean, like, the part of me believes that there's not much things that are random. Everything happens for a reason, right, when it's supposed to happen. So I was on air live yesterday here in L.A. Doing a segment with Michelle, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this figure appear, and I could just tell. I'm like, that is no way Bruce. So I didn't tell you I was coming into town.
Yeah.
And you were there on the set, and friends with the producer and friends with the host. And next thing you know, he joined the show, and it was so good to see him. It's everyone knows the feeling of when you are in a place that you're traveling to. It's a foreign place, not that LA's foreign, but LA's foreign if you're from the East Coast, and you see that familiar face that you know, and I instant smile, and it was great. It was so great to see you.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I noticed that I could tell Andy and Michelle immediately. They were great people, and Carson had told me everything about them, so it was no surprise that you were with them. It was no surprise at all. I've noticed one of those things, and we're going to touch on this today, but when you have good people in your network, and I talk about the importance of networks all the time, you find that those people have good people in their networks as well. So it's a compounding effect that grows and grows and grows. But
for sure.
So let's talk about how you started out. I mean, I want people to get a good piece of all the different lives you've led. You started out not on a track to go into the field you went into, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
Right. So start at the beginning, from starting out to ending up where you ended up, and then all the different, I can't even talk about all the companies we're going to get into.
And feel free to interrupt if I don't want to ramble. I won't go back to when I came out of the womb, but I was basically, I say dumb, but a middle-class kid from New Jersey. I didn't know any better. I mean, we had a decent upbringing, but it was a very small town. I was one of 5 kids, a middle child. And I didn't realize this until I was older. There was no conversation about college with me. But my siblings, there was always college, you're going to do great things. And I think they looked at me like, I'll be a blue-collar guy. I think based on my CD average in school, even though I was athletic, I think my parents, looked at me that way.
Yeah.
I always dreamed of being a police officer. My uncle was a decorated vet. He got killed in the line of duty. My neighbor was a colonel with the state police. So I knew all these people, and I said, I want to be a cop when I grow up. I used to do ride-alongs with the local 6-person police department. Yeah. And one day I got out of high school, and I was kind of just floundering around. What am I doing? I'm working meaningless jobs. And I asked the chief, hey, I really want to be a police officer. What do I need to do? In his own kind way. You're young, you're immature, you're not ready. But if you go in the Marine Corps, I'll hire you the day you get out. I said, that's it? Yeah. Grabbed my best friend and said, hey, we're not really doing a whole lot in this town.
And what town were you in?
A little town called Highbridge, New Jersey. A little steel mill town from the 1800s.
Where is that? Is that north or south?
North, central.
North central.
Very rural, but the town's not changed.
Okay.
Same town today.
Yeah.
And went in the Marine Corps and realized, holy cow, there's a big world. It's not just New Jersey. I think it was the first time I was on an airplane when I flew to Paris Island. And I was just exposed. I mean, you grow up pretty quickly in the military, right?
Yeah.
Make your bed, do all the things you do to be a better person. And I started figuring out that I was a relationship guy because it wasn't so much that I was better than anyone else. The only thing I had up on everyone was I shot guns as a young boy. I was a part of the NRA when I started at 12, shooting like long rifles because of one of my high school coaches. So the Marine Corps prides themselves on one thing, shooting expertise. Yeah. And I was number one in my boot camp. So that really
no kidding.
kind of set me apart. So when I got in the fleet, I just gravitated towards good people. It's interesting. We talk about good relationships. There's even good people in the military, and I surrounded myself with the right people that wanted to work out, did great things, and I ended up being picked on some good details. I was on the powerlifting team. I got picked to be on a security detail for the general. So I really quickly figured out relationships are what's going to carry you through this journey.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps was a great learning lesson. I ended up on a career. Ended up at Camp Pendleton. I'd never been to California. And I ended up at Camp Pendleton for a powerlifting meet, and I saw a sign for a career day at the big building, and I was like, it was IBM and these different companies and the Highway Patrol. So I was like, wow, check this out. So, wow, beautiful people, beautiful weather, and I can get paid to be a cop here. Because I'm thinking I'm gonna be a cop in California. So, started processing. Took about a year, but LAPD picked me up, and that started the journey with the law enforcement. But even while I was processing, I got a part-time job. I looked in the newspaper, believe it or not, when people used to read the newspaper. Yeah. And there was an ad for car salesman. So I said, I think I could do that. I've never sold anything, and I was their #1 car salesman for 8 months while I was waiting to be a cop.
No kidding.
And that's when the relationship thing started clicking. Okay, you just got to be good to people, kind to people, be honest to people, and things are going to come back tenfold.
So that was just something that was innate. It was in you. Did you get any of that from your Now you said siblings. Let's go back to that for 1 second. You were, how many siblings?
5 of us. I was a center.
You were in the center. Yeah. And brothers, sisters?
Yeah, 2 younger brothers, an older brother, older sister.
Okay. Did any of them have this same skill set?
No, not that I observed.
No. Okay.
The only thing I think traits I got was my father's work ethic. He was self-employed and owned a construction company. And he became our scout leader and our little league lead, coach. So he always was giving back to the community. Even to this day, there's a trail named after him in our town that runs for like 100 miles.
Oh, that's awesome.
That he helped develop. So I think I learned how to give back to the people in the community early on, but that might have been the only thing I could attest to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're learning this at an early age.
Yeah.
And so now you land in law enforcement.
Yep.
Okay. So that's something that I wasn't prepared for when I got into it.
Right.
I was, going on the path to become a physician, and then at a physician, I was doing the research. I wanted to join the military. My mom wouldn't let me join the military, so I said, okay, I'm going to go into law enforcement. But I just said that because I wanted to give back to the community. I really didn't have a sense of what it meant. Did you have a good sense of it because of your relationship to that police chief in the town, things like that? You did the ride along. But did you really know? Because I remember my first shift out of the academy was a 3 to 11 shift. And
it's a great shift. It was
favorite. Great, yeah. But it was totally not what I expected. My eyes were like flying saucers. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting what I ran into. Were you a little bit more prepared based on what you did?
No, I think I was in hometown USA doing ride-alongs in a Sleepy Hollow. So you'd engage a couple drunks here and there. But when I went to the police academy, and the LAPD is rather long, 6 months, and this is something I really learned, you learn policies and procedures, right?
Yeah.
Rules, regulations. And I did very well. I was #1. I graduated #1 as far as tactics and driving. I didn't, not PT, but I graduated high in a lot of categories. But when I got in the field, like I said, my first shift, I'm with a guy named Bob, who's an old Vietnam vet. Nice guy, but a little rough on me. And I sat in the car, and in the time there would be like a pad in the middle where if you had to make notes real quick. Yeah. And he drew a picture. I never forget this. I share this with a lot of people. He drew a picture of a face. It had 2 big eyes and 2 big ears and nothing else. He goes, you know what that is? He goes, that's you, Bruce. A lot of listening, a lot of looking, but I don't want you to do a lot of talking. And I was like, yes, sir. But I really realized I honed my listening skills and paid attention, even though he was a little, humiliating. I felt, but he was like a hardcore guy. And I learned also quickly how to treat people. He was a good human being, but he was a little rough. He grew up in that era of if you ran from the cops, there was consequences.
Yeah, yeah.
And I quickly had to decipher. Remember one thing? It was a turning point in my life. We were bringing a guy in, big white guy, all tatted up, kind of a biker guy for a warrant, and I was, bringing him in by the cuffs. I was probably a little rough, and the lieutenant pulled me aside after I hooked him up, put him in the cage, and he said, "Hey, what's that guy here for?" And he's here for a warrant. He goes, "Do you know anything about him?" "No, he's just here for a $2,000 warrant." He goes, "I see you were a little rough. I'm just you could have been kinder." He goes, "I know you're working with Bob." And I know you're getting these traits from Bob. He goes, but Bruce, that guy you just brought in is someone's uncle, father, brother, cousin. He goes, he's got a family.
Yeah.
Maybe he fell on hard times. He goes, I want you to think about this as you go down this path, how you want to be treated and how you want to treat people. And it literally was a eye-opening moment where I went home and said, wow, yeah, who am I to do this? You know, like be kind to people. And it was an overnight switch. And I realized I quickly learned there's no such thing as the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law.
Isn't that the truth?
The world's not black and white, but it's gray. And many people I encountered were a paycheck away from a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to be kind to people. And I learned how to, even the hardcore gang members, I'd rather just talk you into jail, talk about working out.
Yeah. Instead
Instead of being, hey, you know, F up, shut up. And just, I'll figure out a way to talk to you and make jokes and have fun. And don't get me wrong, there's bad people out there, right? But
yeah.
for the most part, I think people fall on hard times and they do silly things. But I just learned quickly to treat people with kindness and just figure out how to be a better person.
Yeah.
So,
and that definitely translated later on in life,
for sure,
for how you got into, you know, you're building your network. So that early conversation with that lieutenant, you know, kind of set the tone. It's so funny that you say that story and you describe that gentleman the way you did, because there's been a lot of times where I've traveled to places and the people looking the way I look with my skin color, and there's been a lot of situations where the people that I thought were going to be the ones to treat me like with kindness and respect because they looked a certain way, they had a certain appearance, and I felt comfortable with, treated me cold. And the people who treated me kindly were the people who, and there's no other way to say this, but there's been a lot of these situations where these like biker dudes with like shaved heads and tattoos and all that stuff are the people who treated me the nicest. And they had no judgment of me based on my skin color or where I came from or my weird name. Right. And I was like, wow, the people who were over here looking real clean cut, looking like, you know, kind of by the book and whatever, they kind of shunned me in some of these situations or kind of looking down on me. And these people were so kind to me. It was the exact opposite of what I expected. And you're right, because, you know, I always find myself getting upset when people look at me based on my skin color and they judge me. They make a judgment of me. And I used to get upset as a kid. Now I'm just like, oh, that's ignorance. But I realized that I was in some way doing that to certain groups of people. Like when you see a bunch of bikers all tatted up and you're like, whoa, these guys must be bad news. And then you sit down and you talk to them and you're like, holy crap. They're like some of the nicest people I've met.
I experienced the same exact thing. I worked for a while I call it the Hood down in South Central and Nickerson Gardens and rough areas. And don't get me wrong, you had to pay attention.
Yeah.
But some of the kindest encounters I would have were community would do a barbecue and they would invite us. And now, don't get me wrong, some of their kids were criminals and hardcore gang members, but the parents, and they'd be like, we just want great relationship with the police.
Yeah.
And I remember when I worked the Hood, there was a couple times I encountered some pretty rough guys out of the pen, you know, big jacked up, standing on the corner. And I remember one time we were talking about, you know, how much weight you could push, lift, wheels, whatever they called it.
Yeah.
And I got in this conversation where my partner's like, kind of like, what are you talking to these assholes for? Like I said, they're just human beings, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a fight with these guys. And I ended up doing a push-up contest in full uniform with a vest with 3 other guys. I mean, my partner was standing there in case somebody, and it ended up becoming like I bonded with these dudes. They decided he's got to be pretty cool if he's doing push-ups with us on the street.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, my sergeant later on counseled me, hey, you know, that's not something that's appropriate. But I was like, dude, you know what? I'm building relationships.
Yeah.
Like these guys, and by the way, when I worked that area and I'd see those guys, I knew that if I had a problem, they were not going to be my problem.
Yes.
They weren't going to be, you know, dealing with a negative encounter. If anything, they'd probably look out for me.
Yeah.
And I tell my partners that, I said, why would we talk so disrespectfully to these guys? Who cares they did a couple years in prison?
Yeah.
My brother did time in prison.
No kidding.
You reform, whatever, but they're still human beings. And a lot of people can't get over that. They think, well, you're a bad guy. You belong to a gang. You're this. At the end of the day, I'd rather get to know you and figure out if you truly are a bad human being or you just fell upon hard times.
Yeah. Talk to everyone and build that relationship.
I say I respect everyone until they decide till we can't have that respect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I learned. It's funny. One of my FTOs, when I started on the job, he said. See, he had a similar conversation with me. He said, "Look at everything you have on your belt." I was like, yeah, I got my OC spray, I got my baton, I got my gun, whatever. He said, just so you know, this right here is the best weapon you have.
Absolutely.
In any situation, your words are going to be the best thing. And he said, I have mastered talking people into handcuffs.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. He's like, and the term that people now have coined, verbal judo, right?
We took a verbal judo course in the LAPD. They had us go back to training on how to talk to people.
Yeah, and I thought it was silly at first. I'm like,
Yeah,
verbal
yeah.
judo.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what is that? What does that even mean? But then when I got, and ironically, like, they didn't really teach that in the academy.
Right.
I think they should have. But I was learning it on FTO, and I saw how he was speaking to people. And he was a guy. He was a senior guy, and he always was so kind to people. And he was always so and no matter who it was, he was just always treated everyone. Like, even if we rolled up on a scene and clearly this guy assaulted this person and beat the crap out of this person, and this guy's guilty, he's going to jail and did something bad, or, a robbery scene, and this guy is the one who committed he always just spoke to that person with just respect and just said, hey, listen, this is this, whatever. And that's where I started learning my people skills. And I remember it wasn't him, but it was another officer that told me a story at a training seminar. It was a trooper. It was a New Jersey State trooper. And I recall where he said it happened. But essentially, long and short of it was, there was an officer who was always kind and in the community. It was a rough area, right? But this one officer, he was always kind. Black gangs, Hispanic gangs, whatever.
Right.
He was always just going, just shooting the shit,
Yeah.
talking to them, being friendly, always respecting them. And of course, he said always careful, but always just giving them respect so long as they gave him respect. There was an incident where there was a altercation with an officer.
Right.
And it was someone who was a bad dude and didn't want to go back to jail. Anyway, he ended up getting the officer's gun, shot one of the officers. And he didn't shoot the other officer, the guy who was always in the community. They asked him after the fact. They said, why'd you shoot that officer and you didn't even shoot at this officer? He's like, that's the guy who's always going around talking to the kids and talking to the people in the basketball court. I see him. And he was treating him with, this guy disrespected me on the traffic stop, was calling me a piece of shit, whatever, and was just not being kind. And here was this gang member, thug, whatever, shot a police officer and chose not to shoot the other guy because he just noticed he would give respect to people in the community. I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That was wild, So that changed I was always kind to people in general, but I realized that some of the people in the community that needed it the most weren't getting it. So that's when I kind of changed, and I was like, I'm gonna be the diplomat. I'm talking to everyone, and it led to so many positive things. Yeah. And you're gonna now talk about how it leads you to build relationships outside of that.
Yeah, and I will close with this. I mean, I worked with LA City, so there were rough parts, and I was involved with a couple of shootouts. There were still bad things that happened, but I always tried to make the most out of the day, and it wasn't negative. But we talk more about the building relationships. I mean,
now let's talk about the progression out of law enforcement.
So what happened was I was working off duty for a retired sergeant from Beverly Hills. He had a security business. And I worked a couple gigs, and after about a year, I figured out going back to relationships. I was like, this isn't hard. You just have to treat people well, provide a service, meet their expectations, but I always exceed the expectations. Yeah. And bodyguard's a whole nother animal on how you treat people, how you conduct yourself. And I'm a servant leader. I'm very good at the backgrounds. I don't need to be in the front. So I started doing that, and I quickly figured out I'm going to start my own business. Got licensed and insured, and I leaned into one of my friends who had the biggest private transportation company in the state, in the country, actually. And I say, I want to start this bodyguard business. He goes, okay, let me open up my Rolodex. And because I had been friends with him for years, I never asked him for anything. I always brought him value. Mm-hmm. He started making calls for me, and it kind of be, I picked up Tommy Mottola, who ran Sony Music at the time, and not Mariah Carey was a client, J-Lo, System of a Down. I became so busy traveling that I left the police department from being full-time, and I became a reserve with the sheriffs.
Okay.
But there again, that goes back, I built relationships, and there was artists that would even say, hey, you're doing more than just being like a bodyguard. You're advanced planning, you're figuring stuff out. Matter of fact, one time I remember I was in Puerto Rico with Mariah Carey, It was just her and I, and she said, you ought to think about, you ever thought about being like in management of artists? I'm like, no, but why would I? She goes, because you're always doing things above and beyond. You're not in my way, but you're always doing things that my manager should be doing, but you're doing. Advanced planning, getting stuff in the hotel room. So I just quickly figured out that providing a service that is greater than what they're expecting is always paid off.
Yeah.
And and then you want to tell you how I met the founders? Where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, so that progressed into a relationship with a company that many people probably know about. So, I mean, and I don't know what parts of that story you can tell.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let you go into it because I know there's different parts of it.
I'm smoothing along, doing my bodyguard business, doing quite well.
Okay.
But I belong to a gym, and the founder of this company is at the gym, and it's interesting. You're gym friends, right? Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And she was always pretty fit, and always when she did cardio, she read like the hardcore bodybuilding magazines. I was like, that's kind of interesting. Now her husband worked out there, but he wasn't very social to me. He was kind of did his own thing.
Yeah.
And one day she was like, I got this product. We just started this company. I want you to try it. So she gave me these 2 protein bars, and I remember like the next week I said they were pretty good. By the way, if you're interested, I'm doing the security at a private tennis event at the Riviera Country Club in Bel Air up here. If you want to get me some product, I could probably get it to the publicist. And they're like, oh my God, for sure. So they give me this product.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
What made you now say,
I have no idea.
I'm going to help this person that I don't even know, that just gave you a product, and now immediately you're saying, because that's not normal.
No, 100%.
That's not normal. And and I talk about this a lot. Like, different people progress to get to their end goal and their end game, and they have different strategies to reach their ultimate ambitions. But there are certain things that are unconventional that a lot of people do. Most people, if someone at the gym said, hey, try these bars out, they'd probably eat the bars. And if they saw them again, be like, hey, those bars were pretty good.
Or never give it a second thought.
They're not thinking, how can I help that person sell more of their bars, which doesn't benefit you, but it ultimately does.
Zero benefit, and it's still, I need to write a book on my DNA. Maybe I'm wired a little different, but there was something about them. They were nice, they were kind. Over the course of a couple weeks, I just got to know them better, and I just said it, and they're like, oh my God, for sure. They dropped the product off at my house. Not a lot, because it was a very small company.
Yeah.
I bring it to this tournament, and my friend Cheryl, who's the publicist, said, listen, I don't know. I know you want stuff for the gift bags. She goes, no, I'm going to do one better. This is before social media. Mm-hmm. Facebook just started. There was no Twitter, Instagram. Mm-hmm. A lot of blogs, and a lot of people were doing, the YouTube stuff. Or maybe it was even YouTube. I think it was. She said, I'm going to do one better. I'm going to get some people to taste it on camera. I got a few people, like Mario Lopez is there, and different talent, and I'm gonna get some content, which I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, what was content back then?
No one knew.
So she got some stuff, pictures. I had a BlackBerry then. There wasn't even an iPhone. And I remember I saw Shannon at the gym like maybe a week later, and I showed her everything. She's like, oh my God, who are these people? How did you get to know them? And they're holding Quest bars and doing a video. There was something about them. I like connecting with kind people.
Yeah.
I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what you do. But if you're kind and you're a nice person, I want to help you, right? So it progressed where I'd get more product and do another event. And I remember I was doing the security on the set of Extra at the time, where Mario Lopez, we filmed out at the Grove, which is like an outdoor shopping center here.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I brought a bunch, and he was giving it out on camera. Hey, our friend Bruce dropped off Quest bars. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. But when I would send the information to the founders, they'd be like, who are you? Like, that's like, who does that?
Yeah.
So 9 months later, after doing some just relationship building, I remember I went to lunch with Ron, who's the founder, and he said, listen, we're stealing from you. We're taking full advantage of what you're doing for us, so we want to put you on the payroll. No, don't. He goes, listen, we're going to start paying you. You could donate it to charity. We're going to start paying you.
Okay.
So once I started getting paid, it was okay. It was like let's say your average American salary. It wasn't changing my life. But it did change my life, because the work ethic thing kicked in me, where once I got compensated, I was like, oh shit, now I really got to prove myself. I started like internalizing, like, okay, what else can I do? Who do I know? This is my message. This is what's going on in my brain.
Right.
And I literally started helping them. So I split my day. I'd be in the office in the morning doing the security thing, talking to clients and dealing with transportation. Then by noon or 1, I'd go to their office, which, by the way, was on the south end of Compton by city of Paramount. When I first went visited their office, they were in this little industrial strip center. There was no promise of success. I walked in their office and I was like, they're not going to be in business in 6 months. It was just this rickety place. They had little desks, those IKEA desks you would buy for your kid.
Yeah.
That's what the adults sat in so they get more people in a room. And I thought, wow, okay, they're nice people. That good product's good, but they're not. I don't think they're going anywhere.
Yeah.
But it became my why, because what happened was people started writing us and saying, hey, I lost 20 pounds over the last 2 months eating this bar as a go-to snack to curb my appetite. And something clicked in me. It really became like a very meaningful, rewarding thing to see people changing their lives, embracing it. And I literally just started taking ownership of anything I could. They said, listen, one guy does sales and marketing, this guy does production, and I said, well, yeah. So I built out the events team. I built the ambassador program out. I started going to all these charity events for GNC and Vitamin Shop because no one wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll go. And over the course of 9 years, I became the chief communications officer. And I always say this, like I had no resume in that.
Yeah.
I didn't go to school for food science. I just, and we sold for $1 billion cash to Atkins in 9 years. And I became part of the executive team. Wow. But I do tell people this, I did everything they needed. I literally brought value and exceeded any expectations. And when I started doing that stuff, like getting bars in people's hands, I had no thought of, I'm going to make something out of this. They're going to take care of me. I just thought, they're nice people. The product's cool.
Let me help them out.
Yeah, I want to help them out. But I didn't realize what it was going to turn into.
No kidding. So, obviously, most everyone watching knows either has tried or seen Quest bars, and what a crazy ride that was. And that was all out of just your kindness to say, I'm going to help these
Helping
people
them out, yeah.
But now I've seen that you still do that to this day. I mean, when you met me, you did that for me, and I'm like, this guy doesn't even know me. I don't know you, but we had a mutual friend. Yeah. And you just said, hey, get me some stuff. I'm gonna put it in front of a few people and let me know. So let me just bring value and not worry about being compensated, and it'll happen organically. Now, there are some people that hold the mindset of don't work for free.
Sure.
And I'm not a proponent of that. I feel like I've done a lot of work for free for a lot of my mentors because I just wanted to get in the room. I wanted to get by their side at their desk.
Sure.
Like, what can I do? I don't care. You hold that same mentality. What would you say to some of the people who are on the other side saying, well, I need to make money. I don't want to work for free.
Absolutely. There's a couple of scenarios. So, listen, 8 hours in a day, right?
Yeah.
You do your 9 to 5. Bring value to people after you get off the clock. I mean, whether it's a charity, there's a lot of ways to bring value. It doesn't have to be, it could be time, energy, resources. But I tell people this, and it was a prime example at Quest. After I was doing it and I got established and built the resume, if I will, people would come and apply for a job, and it was kind of comical. It was actually a little embarrassing at times. Someone would come in with their suit and tie and their resume. Hey, I'm here to be the director of marketing, and I need $150,000 a year. And I would sometimes sit in the interviews, or sometimes they would text me, say, hey, can you come on in the office? They'd be partway through the interview and say, hey, Johnny's here to be the director of marketing. Oh, great. Hey, great to meet you. Hey, Bruce, so how long did you work for us for free? 9 months. And what exactly did you do? And I'd tell them, and you'd see the people kind of be like the air kind of leaving their body. As in, like, you're coming in and asking for the director position at $150,000, but you're not even willing to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Because we would always offer, hey, we'd always say this too, was kind of, let's date before we get engaged.
Sure.
Why don't you come hang out for 30 days and see if it's a good fit?
Yeah.
It will pay you, but so a lot of people want that instant gratification. Hey, I got graduated college. I need this position. And I tell people, if you could plant yourself, and I called myself an intrapreneur, not an entrepreneur, but an intrapreneur within a company, because I really did everything on my own.
Yeah.
No one was telling me what I could and couldn't do. I always tell people, if you had that opportunity to hook up with someone and just be an intern, help bring value, why you still do your day job? Maybe you're helping them on the side. If you could turn that into equity and become a multimillionaire, would you do it?
Yeah.
Sure. Is it always going to happen? No.
Yeah.
Could it happen? For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that chapter of your life came to a close. What year was that?
But Quest sold 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
So since then, now you've started on another journey.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the transition into the next chapter?
Well, I'm still in the food space because Ron, who started Quest, started a company called Legendary Foods.
Yeah.
So I helped them. I helped some other brands building their brands.
You mentioned an influencer network. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people, obviously, today that want to be influencers or trying to be influencers, and there are some people who do very well at it. There's other people who do it, but I see that they're not doing it well at all. Right. It's very, let me say, inauthentic. So when it comes to people who are watching or listening, maybe they want to go into this influencer space. What are some of the things that you've seen that the most successful influencers that you've worked with since the beginning, when you started this, did to get to where they are?
I think a lot of people, if you're authentic and true to your fans, don't create it. I mean, a lot of people create this persona, right?
Yeah.
With the Lamborghinis and whatever.
Yeah.
Just be true and authentic. I mean, and be honest with people. I think sometimes people put up a facade, and then when you meet them, it's not the person you thought it was. I mean, I get it. A lot of people want to make a living doing this, and it doesn't work out for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think being true to who you are and your messaging is always the same. What's that saying? If you never tell a lie, you never have to really remember what you say.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people tell a narrative, and it doesn't always match up with what they're trying to, what the end game is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, where you ended up going from law enforcement to security to pretty much a marketing position, branding position, brand placement. I see you. That's been a big thing for you. Did you ever see yourself? Did you ever have any aspirations when you're in the law enforcement space? Like, what made you say? Because there's so many people who, when they get to a certain thing, I want to be a cop, and they become a cop, and that's all they do. They're like, okay, they do their 25 years, they retire. If their pension's there, whatever. But you were someone who said, no, I'm gonna do this other thing. I'm gonna start this private security thing. What was going on in your mind? Was it a sense of being a police officer wasn't fulfilling enough, or you wanted to do more, or you felt you could do more? Like what? Because obviously this has happened multiple times. You went from the law enforcement to the security thing, and then from the security thing, whether you know it or not, you went into this
another field,
branding, marketing space, trying to help these people out, and it just turned into something. So were these aspirations for you, or were there did you ever think to yourself, I just don't want to be a cop for the rest of my life, I got to do something more? Or did these just happen?
I think they happened because obviously, like you said, there's protection, civil service protection. I have many of my retired, and now they're in Florida or whatever.
Yeah.
Just got their pension. I thought that was going to be my journey, but I guess I wanted more. And when I had the opportunity to work security, I realized, wow, there's a lot more in life than that salary.
Yeah.
And I said, gosh, there's business opportunities, entrepreneurships, and while it's risky and there's other levels of anxiety doing that, it's endless, right?
Yeah.
And I got that bug of like, wow, I can build businesses, I can help people, but it wasn't. I wasn't a marketing person. I would say I was a relationship person, which I guess turned out to be a marketing person, right?
Yeah.
But I had nothing in my DNA, and the little tidbits and things I share, I don't know where it came from. I always wanted to do more. Even when I was a cop, I got involved with the DARE program, which was a drug and thing for kids. I did that PALS. I donated a lot of time just to do more.
Yeah. When you look at what you did, branding, marketing, two different things.
Yeah.
And then you're going into a space where you're trying to get things into influential people's hands, and then hopefully they share it.
Right.
So it's one thing to give a product to Mario Lopez, for example, name you mentioned. But then it's another thing for him to now on his platform promote it. In those situations, it doesn't sound like you asked these people to do it. You just gave it to them, and they ultimately did it. How did that happen organically?
I'll tell you this, and this is something else. I don't know where it came from. I heard if you remember the movie Fight Club, the first rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I would tell that to talent when I would give them product. They'd say, "Oh, I'll do a post or a tweet." I go, "No, please don't. If you like it, great. Share it with your friends." And I think subconsciously that made people think, "Wait, what do you mean don't?" And then they would. And I swear, we all remember Ronda Rousey, the fighter, right?
Yeah.
I met her at an expo, and she fell in love with our product, and we became friends. And I used to deliver it to her house. She lived in Venice. and she loved the apple pie bars. And I remember one day she did a post or she did posted something else. I think it might have been a tweet, and organically, I didn't ask her.
Yeah.
And her agent calls me like a week later and says, "Hey, Bruce, I Rhonda's been talking about you guys. We should do a deal." And I said, "Well, I don't. What do you mean? What kind of deal? Like, she's talking about us. We're friends." He actually made a mistake. He actually went back to her and said, "Hey, I see you did this post. We should really figure out how we can make money on them." And she had to put him in line. She told me the story. She said, "I make enough money with my commercials and my whatever. I like helping friends out. They're being good to me, and it's a true relationship. I don't need to get paid." Wow. So, but that started happening. Like, I could route, Will Smith talked about us. We were in a magazine. People would mention us. Bruce Willis used to eat a bar a day, and it would just happen organically. People would talk about us. I was early on the Kardashian show. We were on the set. Like, you would see our product early on because a production company liked us, and the Kardashians liked us, and it just became where.
So that was never a paid placement.
We've never paid a dime. It was always like, enjoy the product. And if you want to talk about it, great. If you don't, I'm okay with that.
That's
too.
wild.
And people will, I think it must be a sense of obligation. I don't know what it is, but I think subconsciously, not everyone does.
Yeah.
I send product to people, I'll never hear a word.
Yeah.
I mean, some big names in the world. Maybe their assistant writes, "Hey, just so you know, the client really likes it." And their kids, great, cool.
Yeah.
But because here's how I look at it too. If Jessica Simpson, who's been a fan for years, has it in her kitchen or her pantry, and people come by the house, "Oh, what's that?"
Yeah.
I did it, Irving Azoff is a big music legend. He has it in his kitchen. There's just people, that's a different kind of placement, right?
Yeah.
They like us. It's in their kitchen. It's in their pantry. Who cares? But I tell people this, when you have a brand, because you know this, "Hey, I'm going to send you this hat. Can you make sure you post about it?"
Yeah.
I'd rather not you send it to me. But I'm going to talk about you, but just that tit for tat, to me, it's never worked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's never worked with 221B Tactical either.
I mean, there's so many scenarios where I tell brands, don't be that guy, don't be that girl. Just send and by the way, one of the things we learned, you want to build a $1 billion brand, you're gonna have to give away some millions of dollars worth of product.
Yeah.
Now, Kind Bar has mastered it. They just sample, and they're a massive company. But sometimes it requires a little bit of budget, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm see that shirt, your shirt,
Yeah.
Tactical, I mean, I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
People will ask me, "Oh, my friend Fresh owns it. It's an amazing company. You should check it out." Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's word of mouth. It's organic. It's for me. It's the best way to market.
Yeah. I want to jump into a situation that I know you have some intimate knowledge about, and it's a story that I think a lot of people watching and listening would want to know about, because it's a company that did something that was very unorthodox, and it kind of is in line with what we're talking about here. First Form went down a path of getting their customers to put out like massive amounts of content. And something that you told me, like when we first met, I've never forgotten, and I don't even know how many years it's been since we met,
I'm nervous what he's going to say.
And Bruce told me this, and I never forgot it. I was talking to you about branding and marketing, and 221B was fairly new.
Right.
And he said, focus on one thing and one thing only. Get 1,000 screaming fans.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. And I've been in board meetings at 221B Tactical with all the people who are the marketing, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, how are we getting closer to 1,000 screaming fans?
Yeah.
And people have asked me where that's come from for, all the time. Like when the CEO says something in a meeting like that, I'm like, we need 1,000 screaming fans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my buddy Bruce.
Yeah.
Now, First Form did it in a very unique way.
Right.
And it was a marketing genius, I felt. Let me get your insight on that, because to this day, what Andy, of course, and his brother have done. Walk me through that progression of what they did to become are they $1 billion brand? Like the billion, right? Are they about $1 billion?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Can you share what they did?
Kind of the same thing. The philosophy we did at Quest and what they do. They have a following that's bar none, loyal. And I'm obviously help them. I'm part of their team. Same thing, getting product in people's hands.
But it wasn't celebrities.
No.
It was that's what was so different.
It was Susie Soccer and random people, military vets, but they became so loyal to the cause. I think First Form has like 50 million impressions a week or some staggering number on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah.
But it's a following.
Yeah.
And the Legionnaire program, I think they're up to like 10,000 Legionnaires, and they're megaphones. You
Now-
talk about screaming fans. We
Yeah.
have 10,000 Legionnaires that then have people under them. It's a trickle down effect.
There are people who've compared it to like an MLM
Okay.
because the Legionnaires have to pay.
Well, they
to
buy
come-
they buy so much product a month.
a month.
Yeah.
They're obligated.
But let me just say this: you're going to go to a nutrition shop and spend $50 a month on protein or whatever you
More,
do, right? Or
more.
whatever, 100.
Yeah.
So it's the same, except it's through the First Form system. So it's not really
Right.
MLM's kind of I think an old word, but
Yeah.
some
it is.
people will say that. But at the end of the day, you're still going to spend that amount of money on supplements. So why not do it through?
and get a benefit because you're getting a discount.
Yeah, you're getting a discount.
You're getting a discount.
Yeah,
And then
people,
when people order through your
Through
code, they get a discount.
and there's people that make quite a bit of money. Our Legionnaires and our athletes
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah.
Do very well.
So it's a positive program
Yeah.
all around. But what was unique was they didn't use celebrities. They
No.
didn't use influencers.
No, none.
They used regular people.
Regular people, and now they're at a level now where they are attracting not celebrities per se, but bigger names in the
Yeah,
space, you know,
yeah.
that are and all walks of life though, like
Yeah.
BJ Baldwin, you know, the
Yep.
racer,
Yep.
shooters, you know, all kinds of people.
It's incredible.
Yeah,
It's incredible. So if
our
you-
friend Tony. You know,
yeah,
he's part of-
Tony,
yeah.
Tony Setmanon, Real World
Yeah.
Tactical. If someone is starting a company
Right.
and they're looking obviously to grow their footprint and grow their noticing, when it comes to, and let's say their ambition is to get to $1 million,
Right.
they have certain budgets. Maybe they haven't gotten any capital, so they're basing their spend on their revenue.
Right.
A lot of people have different opinions about the difference between marketing and branding.
Right.
What do you define? If someone came to you, because now you're like, to me, this is your world and this is your wheelhouse.
Right.
If someone came to you and said, which is more important and how would you define it? What would you say?
Between marketing and branding.
Yeah.
Marketing, I think a lot of people equate marketing to spend, like I marketing dollars to spend.
Yeah.
I think branding is brand recognition. Like when I was at Quest, and it's kind of funny because when I left, I had all these clothes. I had nothing but Quest clothes, shirts, sweatshirts, tank tops. People were actually kind of freaked after I left. They're like, "You're not wearing Quest anymore."
Yeah.
My Jeep was wrapped in Quest.
Yes, I remember.
That's branding.
yeah.
People associated the brand. You know, you have to. Branding is being seen, being heard, being watched.
Even if people don't even know what it is yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a prime example of First Form. People see it and they're like, what's First Form? I see this logo. What is that?
Yeah.
Marketing is, you know, I'm not a big believer in real marketing is interesting because I really feel if you have a consumable item, the key thing is to get it in people's hands.
Okay.
You can market all day long, but if you I'll give you an example. There was a company at the LA Fit Expo last year, a little cookie company, and I told the guy, I said, you need to sample. And the test will be if people try it and walk away and come back and buy a box. I said, that's the key. Before you waste a bunch of money and millions of dollars, get people to try it. No different than apparel, right? Get people to wear it. Does
Yeah.
it feel good? Is it a good fit? And that's real marketing. To me, you could spend all these dollars on Google and ads and force people to buy it. But here's the thing. We want lifetime customers, right?
Yeah. You want 'em to
So if
come
I
back.
try that cookie and I like it and I buy it at the expo, hey, where else can I get? Oh, Amazon, great. Or do I have a code or what's your website? People want to force their products on people, but just test it. So market it to, I still to this day, if I give you a product, I'm going to, hey, by the way, here's one for you, Suresh. Here's a second one. Give it to your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, someone in
Yeah.
the gym. I always give two items because that's true marketing.
Yeah.
And you're going to come back and say, wow, my friend really liked that. I told him about your code for your website. So that's what I think is the difference. But getting it in people's hands if you have a consumable item. If it's marketing other things is a little more difficult, you know, but
And that word of mouth spreading.
it spreads. You tell two friends. It became like, it's wildfire. For the brands that catch on, it
Yeah.
becomes wildfire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's not fast enough for a lot of people. They're like, yeah, but if we do this campaign and we spend $1 million, sure, but they still haven't tried your product.
yeah, that's the hard part. I mean, trade shows are great for that.
For sure.
That's where people get to try
Right.
it and feel it, and especially when you have a wearable product. Like in the early days at 221B Tactical, people were coming to the trade shows, they were trying our gloves, and that's what we would do. At first, it was like, wait a second, do we want it? And we would say, hey, listen, here's a couple pairs of gloves. Here's one for you. Go back to your police department and pass this set around.
Right.
They would pass it around, and of course, ultimately, someone would come buy it at the website, whatever. But another thing that happened from that was they would sometimes go to the local police tactical supply store, and they would walk in and they would say, "Oh no, you don't have." And they're like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" "I'm looking for these gloves, 221B tactical. They're cut resistant. They're really thin, whatever." And the store owner was like, "No, I've never heard of them. We don't have them." "Oh, a couple of guys at work have them. They're really cool. They fit great. They're better than like any of the mechanics wear gloves or whatever." And these people are like, "Better than mechanics wear? Wait, what are you talking about? Hold on, I got like $5,000 in mechanics inventory here." And you're saying we'd get a call and be like, "Hey, this is like Joe's Tactical Supply in like whatever, Dallas, Texas. We got some guys coming in asking for your gloves. Like, how do we become a dealer?
Right.
What's the opening order?" And that was all from a little a giveaway.
And obviously that cost you X amount of dollars to give those gloves away. But look at what happened. You get an account with a city. City's buying 50 gloves or 100 gloves.
Oh, thousands.
Yeah, thousands. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a whole different game. And those are things early on that at first I was like, I don't want to give away anything for free. Like,
I know it's expensive.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, what and then I saw the value of that. And then, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and then it just spreads from there.
Yeah.
In your journey,
right.
You've mentioned some names. You've met some incredible celebrities. You've done some work for some high-level people. I know you've been in some crazy situations. What's one of the most interesting situations you've ever been in? You don't need to share the names.
Yeah.
But what would you say? Because you see behind the veil and you've been behind the curtain and behind the scenes. What's one of the craziest things you've ever seen?
Yeah, without naming names because everyone's still alive. There's been a couple high-profile people that I've taken, take care of security for them, and stalkers ultimately become a problem, right? Especially the higher profile you get. And I remember a kid came from Alabama with his luggage, a one-way bus ticket, and showed up at a pretty famous person's house that has the initials K, and was like, "I'm here to, move in."
What?
And yeah, literally, they called me, "Hey, this guy's at our gate and says he's, one of these kind of like, it's my destiny to be with you." And it got really hairy because he was obviously not all there, his mental faculties, but I've had about a good 20 of those over the years where people are just, whatever they perceive a celebrity to be based on TMZ or the news or magazines, they feel a connection. I always warn, celebrities is another thing. It's on them too to be aware of what they put out.
Sure.
But people, so I've had a couple of those, and a couple that got a little like sideways, like I want to have your baby kind of thing. And
oh wow.
Yeah, and it's a little like frightening to think, that you got to get police departments involved in restraining orders and getting people back on buses to go home, and
that's so scary.
Yeah. Some thank God with the violence. I mean, I've always prided myself on getting people in and out of places without being seen usually,
Yeah.
I'm not a big front door guy, and even when I've gone to Disneyland with like Mariah Carey, we used to go to Disney World and ride the rides, and it would usually be as we're walking by, people would say, "Oh, that looks like..." No, it's not her. We're already, I think it's her, but yeah, that's the key. Be seen when you want to be seen, but in public, there's just too many variables of people that do crazy stuff,
Yeah, especially today.
Yeah,
it's a price. Yeah, I mean, I know that there's a price that you have to pay for that fame.
Yeah,
and it comes with it, but you'll of course always want to make sure that your safety is not compromised.
Yeah, and no one really wants to talk about their situation. I mean, people have been killed or hurt over the years. So you really got to be conscious, especially if you have children too. I tell people you got to really adjust your life accordingly.
Yeah.
So
we got to close, but I want to close on this.
Yeah.
In your experience, in all that you've done, you've traveled, you've spent time with some of the most famous people in the world that many of us know about. What would you say for someone who, no matter what their ambition is, they want to be successful, they want to grow? What would you say is the single most important? I don't want to say trait, because people think of that like innately, but maybe the single most important action that one can take to get to that place they want to be from where they are. A lot of people phrase this question in, if you can go back 30 years, what's one thing you would focus more on? Trait, action, whatever it may be. What would you say to someone up and coming or trying to reach that goal? What's the most important thing?
I mean, I'm a servant leader.
Mm-hmm.
I would say and I've always done it, but I didn't do it as well when I was younger. I'd say figure out a way to serve other people with zero expectations. Bringing value is better than cash. You know, bringing value to relationships is better than cash currency. But you got to figure out what that looks like. I mean, I don't know how much time we have. We have a minute. I'll tell you a quick story. But I years ago when I was doing the bodyguard thing, I was on my way to a Grammy, advancing a Grammy party.
Okay.
And this kid, I saw him a couple times at events, standing behind the rope line. And as I was walking up, he goes, "Are you Bruce?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You know, I know who you are because I've been at these events. And I asked who you are. I really want to meet your client. You're gonna, because I was gonna bring a client to this Grammy event that night." And I go, "Well, that's kind of weird. You can't do that." And, but for something clicked in me. He seems like a nice kid, so I took a few minutes to talk to him. He said, "Listen, I want to get in the music industry. I have this idea, this digital idea." He was only 19 or 20. He goes, "I came out here. My mom wants me to go home. I've been trying to get in people's doors." I said, "Well, do this, man." I said, "The only thing I can tell you is that if you have an opportunity to get in any of these music companies, just offer your services for free. Call the HR department, say, I'll work for free. I'll be an intern. If it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you're happy at the end of that internship of me working for free, and if there's a job opportunity, great." I said, "That's all I could tell you because I don't know anything about you." He seemed pretty logical, right? So, but what happened was I went back and got the client. There's a bunch of us in the SUV and we're pulling up. The client was always he was a CEO of a music company. And he'd always, "Hey, what's going on?" And I said, "Well, there's people, you know," he would always stop and say hi to people. I said, "But there's a kid," as we're pulling up, I said, "Kid in the green shirt wants to say hi to you." And I said, "I'm compelled to tell you that for some reason. I don't know why." It was almost like there was something in me. He stops and talks to this kid for 30 seconds. No more, no less. I wasn't listening because I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
He turns to his assistant and says, "Hey, get this kid's information." We go inside. I hear nothing. I've never seen this kid again. I never followed up. 15 years later, I'm at the 2022 Super Bowl, which is in SoFi here.
Yeah.
In the suite with my clients. And I get the chills thinking about this. And you know what? Have you ever been to SoFi or you know that you could see through the glass?
You can see right through.
The suite next door. Oh, there's Tom Cruise eating salami. Whatever. I see someone like looking at me.
Yeah.
A few minutes later, there's a knock on the door at our suite, and I step outside. The security guy goes, "Oh, I'm doing security." And the guy goes, "This guy wants to say hi to you." As I step out in the hallway, it's this kid. 15 years later, the kid I said, "Do the internship for free." He said, and he's kind of teared up, gives me a big hug, and he said, "You're Bruce, right?" Yeah. He goes, "I took your advice." He goes, "I was banging on their door. I finally got a meeting with HR. They let me do this internship." He goes, "I did this digital thing for the music industry, kind of like free downloads, like Napster back in the day, but different."
Yeah.
Fast forward, he learns everything there. He leaves and starts his own company. He's worth millions now. And he says, "That suite's mine. This is my wife." He goes, "It's all because you told me not to give up."
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
It was a real tearjerker.
Wow.
And his wife said, "Oh, hey, I know all about you." Because he did his internship at our company, and she was in the legal department, and she wouldn't go on a date with him while he was an intern.
Oh, my God.
He leaves the company, starts his own business, and then went back and dated her, and they got married. But I realized, I was telling people, like, just give people a shot. Give people advice. If you're young and you know what to do, hey, go work for free.
Yeah.
Help people out. Do whatever you got to do. And it really, like, that was moving for me that he felt. Now, I didn't think I did anything other than give him some free advice for 15 years.
Yeah.
He, to this day, now we're friendly, and he says I've changed his life. I mean, he was ready to go home because he was, didn't have any other options.
Yeah, and just go like work some job and whatever.
So I tell people, always give people a break. Try and give them advice. Give them free advice. Whatever.
Yeah.
And it comes back tenfold.
And hats off to that CEO.
Yeah,
who gave him 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
That might give him a little bit of hope.
He literally goes, "I'm talking to the main guy. Holy cow!"
Yeah.
Like and I have recognition.
Yeah.
He still had to fight to get in there, even to be a
Sure.
free intern. They're kind of like, "What are you, an idiot?"
Yeah.
But they took him up on it.
Wow. You saying that to him?
Yeah.
Say, hey, give that kid, that kid over there. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
I love it. Bruce, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you.
I mean, I know there's a lot of different paths we can keep
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on talking about. We didn't even touch on the fitness stuff.
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
yeah.
man. So I'm going to have to get you back because I want to talk about some of the fitness stuff and some of the things that you've experienced
I'd
in
love
the
to.
fitness industry because I know that was a
Yeah.
big part of your world
Yeah,
for
for
a
sure.
long time. But where can people find you? I mean, what's the platform that you're most on? They can follow your journey because your throwback photos.
Yeah.
He puts up photos of like just random, like out of the blue. You'll see a picture of him and some celebrity, some crazy famous person. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah, the White House or
Yes.
different places I've been.
So where can people track your journey?
Instagram primarily Bruce E. Cardenas, and then
Okay.
I have a website, just brucecardenas.com,
Okay.
where I'm starting to pursue the coaching and the speaking thing.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to get into
Yeah.
that next time because there's so many people that you've touched. Me,
Yeah.
and the people you've introduced me to help build 221 Be Tactical. And that's, why you're sitting here today. But I know that that's a whole nother thing for you that you can get into that.
Yeah.
You're going to change
love
people's
to.
lives. If you're sitting in this chair
Yeah,
and you're putting out the content and the information that you have and your knowledge. I know people have been telling you that for years. Hey, you got to start putting this out there. But I know that that's something that people are going to benefit from.
I think when you get to a certain point in life, I think we almost owe it to people to, if you can help people
Yeah.
and sway them and get them in the right, why not?
Yeah. That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
People say, Suresh, you got the businesses, you got the money, you got the real estate, you got the cars, you got all the. Why are you sitting here? And I'm like, this is awesome. Sharing my journey and what I learned. Hey, do this, don't do this, and then having people like you come on and say, this is what I did to get to where I am, and maybe you could take one thing from what I did and help you get to where you are.
I think about all the kids from New Jersey, like we are,
Yeah.
that are 18 and 19-year-olds and don't really, what am I doing? I'm in this little town, and then say, oh, wow, look at these guys. They did some cool stuff.
That's it.
And
That's
then they
it.
could set, oh, wow, now I have a vision and a goal.
Yeah. I mean, the town I grew up in was as big as this coffee table.
Right.
And no one would think, wow, this guy made. And I, as the only black kid in the whole town,
Right.
blue collar town, and wow. And so if that can give hope, like he did it. He did it. He's from this town.
Same thing with me. There was an article written in people in my high school on Facebook. Man, I'm so proud of you. Like,
That's awesome stuff.
So I think we owe it to people to help get them motivated when they're 18 and 19 and don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, and get them in. That's the generation that's going to change the world.
Yep.
Well,
Well, thanks
Bruce,
for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Make sure we're going to put all the links below. Follow Bruce. You're going to see some crazy content, and he just leads the most interesting life, and he's always in crazy places with crazy people. So make sure you follow that. Thank you everyone for watching. We will see you next time.